Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Ninome TV. Today we're gonna look at choosing between the rubber sole or the felt sole for Sawanobori. So if you're just starting out in Sawanobori, I think you would have to choose between a rubber sole or a felt sole, and you'd have a hard time deciding. So I hope after watching this video, you're gonna be able to make a better, more informed decision choosing between the rubber sole or the felt sole. So a bit about the felt sole shoes. I think they started in the western region, but they are highly adopted in Japan, very popular especially in ayu fishing. Ayu is this fish that thrives in fast-moving water. They tend to migrate upstream. In fact, in Nakagawa River, on the first day of the ayu season, over 13,000 people actually turned up to fish for ayu on the very first day. So I think ayu fishing is definitely a big thing in Japan, and a lot of them actually use felt sole shoes like these. So the amazing thing about felt sole shoes is that they do grip on slimy and slippery rocks, and the reason why these rocks are slimy and slippery is because it is actually covered in a layer of algae. I think in Japan they call it koke. Koke means moss, but instead of moss it is actually a layer of algae. This biofilm of algae and bacteria wraps the rock and creates a really slimy, slippery surface that even grippy rubber shoes like this would slip right off, which is pretty annoying because in some rivers, and I'll talk a bit more about that later, you would run into like hundreds of these rocks that are all brown and they're just covered in this slippery algae, and you would tend to lose your balance, and it's really annoying. A bit more about the felt shoe. When I was doing my research, to my surprise, felt shoes are actually banned in New Zealand. Reason being because this material is highly absorbent. It traps a lot of water and it takes a long time to dry out. So what happens is that it actually brings a lot of microorganisms from one river to the other. And by transporting these microorganisms that shouldn't be there, it could potentially change the food chain. How does that happen? In New Zealand, there is a microscopic algae that would actually grow into this brown mat, and it would smother the riverbed. This would persist for months. It's gonna just take over the habitat of other species, and this would then alter the food chain and cause a lot of serious problems ecologically. So not just New Zealand, I think the felt shoe is also banned in parts of the US like Alaska and Maryland, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, back to the question now. So should you choose the rubber sole or the felt sole? And the answer is actually very simple. It depends on which type of river you're going for. So let me explain a bit more. I've been to two types of rivers, and fortunately they're both very different, which is why I'm able to come up with this explanation. So the first river that I've been to is actually called the Asahi River, and this is in the Omine Mountains in the Nara Prefecture. And the second river that I've been to was the Yatsubuchi Falls in Shiga Prefecture. So I'll put the thumbnails of both videos up here so you can actually take a look and kind of get a glimpse of how different these two rivers really are. Okay, first, you have Asahi River, which is super wide. Everything is really vast. If you're looking at it through a lens, it's almost like you're looking through a wide angle lens. Everything is just expanded and super horizontal. Whereas Yatsubushi Falls, it's narrower. If you're looking through a lens, it's almost like your one-time zoom. Okay, so how is this relevant? Well, in a wide river, water tends to flow slower generally. You have like wider pools, bigger streams, gentler currents. Of course, you have, intense sections where the currents are really strong, but generally in a wide river system like this, the majority of the route was actually made up of areas with pretty slow moving water. So slow water is where algae would tend to thrive. So stronger current, clearer surface, slow moving water, more algae. And walking on this sort of rocks, which is covered with the algae surface, is not fun. I've lost count of the number of times I've actually slipped off when I'm walking over like hundreds of these brown rocks that are just covered with slimy, slippery algae. Imagine doing this like for 3 hours straight, 5 hours. That's when you would really wish you're wearing one of these. One of my friend, we were in Asahi River and he had a pair of felt sole shoes and he was walking just fine. And in contrast to that, in a narrower river like the Yatsubuchi Falls, you would find significantly stronger current, fast moving water throughout the river system, and there is way less algae buildup in rivers like this. Most of the rock surfaces were clean and I had excellent friction with this pair of shoes, so I would say rivers like that definitely go with the rubber sole. Okay, but then how are you going to know which type of river has what sort of rocks, right? Easiest way is to actually just ask your friend who's bringing you there. I'm sure it's not his first time. Someone in the group has definitely gone there before and they'd be able to have a good idea of what sort of rock surface you're going to deal with. Then just make a decision to go with the appropriate shoe, either the rubber sole for fast moving water or the felt sole shoe for wider rivers with slower moving water. So if you head to Montbell right now, they have this design where the top section is actually the same. The only difference is the sole, either rubber or felt. And when I bought these shoes, I thought that having this part that goes pretty high up, like a high cut kind of design, would actually help keep a lot of the pebbles and sand from entering the shoes, but boy was I wrong. It was pretty annoying. I would have to stop every 30 minutes or so to just remove my shoes and, do this. And what I noticed in this previous design from Montbell is that they have this neoprene sock-like feature which looks very fitting, and I think this would actually keep a lot of pebbles and sand from actually entering the shoe. I'm not sure why they've switched to this design. Maybe some folks have their own socks already. This would just make it a bit more versatile and compatible to mix and match, perhaps. So having encountered that problem on my first Sawanobori trip, I went to Montbell looking for neoprene socks. And to my surprise, or perhaps lack of surprise, Montbell actually sells these neoprene socks that tuck nicely into the shoes. So imagine if you're wearing your socks like this, zip this part up as usual. So this part would actually then fold out over your shoe like that. And on my second trip, having used this, it really works. It kept 99% of pebbles and sand from entering the shoe. And you can actually see the resemblance of this design on the new sock and the previous generation Montbell Sawanobori shoes. I think they have this sold separately to make it more versatile or to simply make more money. If you have a rubber sole shoe, or if you're intending to buy one, this is a really good tip that I learned from Sei-san, the friend who actually brought me to both these rivers. So he taught me this technique where if you actually have to step on a surface that's slippery, this is what you should do. Take your rubber sole and just rub it on that particular surface that you're going to commit your next step on. Try to get rid of as much algae as possible by just scraping the surface with the rubber sole. It's still going to be slippery, but by doing this, you would improve your grip by quite a bit. And once you feel that your friction has improved, apply maximum pressure on your shoe. The more pressure you have with this sort of rubber sole, the more friction you'll get, and just commit and trust that you will not slip, and all I can say is good luck. Okay, having experienced both types of rivers, I can't help but wonder, why not just combine the rubber sole with the felt sole? And I don't mean like, wearing one of these on each feet. What I mean is like, why not put rubber on the toe front and the back heel, where you would tend to focus most of your climbing on, and then have the middle section completely covered with felt. I think that would give a good balance regardless of what type of river you'd go to, or perhaps even have alternating strips of rubber felt all the way across the entire sole. Montbell, if anyone at Montbell is watching this, please talk to your R&D team, run a bunch of experiments, create a shoe like that, and I'll be the first person to buy it. And you can even call it the Montbell Sawer Hybrid. I'm sure a lot of folks will be like, take my money. So guys, if this ever exists someday, remember you heard it here first on Nidome TV. Alright, now you're heading to a store like Montbell and you have to choose between the felt or the rubber sole. If you only have to make one choice, I would say go with the rubber sole and pick a river stream that has less algae, like the Yatsubuchi Falls in Shiga. That way you'll be able to enjoy more serious climbing. That said, if you can actually afford to buy both, go for it, because having both pairs of shoes would give you more options on the types of rivers that you can actually enjoy. And lastly, if you're the type of person that would avoid tricky sections, you would tend to gravitate towards using easier paths, or you enjoy swimming more than climbing when you're on a Sawanobori trip, then I would definitely go with the felt sole. Because if you're not going to climb, you're going to spend most of the time on relatively flat surfaces. Not having rubber wouldn't matter as much, and these felt shoes will help you maintain balance on really slippery surfaces. So I hope all this makes sense. I think just having a good idea of the difference between the pros and cons of the rubber sole and the felt sole will help you make your purchase decision a bit easier. If you find this information helpful and if you enjoy content like this, do give this video a like and this channel a subscribe. It's not going to cost you anything, but it's going to help this channel go a long way. And I really hope you get to experience Sawanobori, especially if you're not living in Japan and if you're traveling. If you do come to Japan in summer, check out Sawanobori and consider it as an activity, because it's going to bring you deep into the heart of Japan, into dense forests, river streams. You really get the chance to be one with nature. If you need help with any information on Sawanobori or rock climbing, especially in the Kansai region, just look up the info section on this channel. I'll leave my email address there so you can actually get in touch. And if you want to learn more about Sawanobori, do watch this video. I'm going to link it somewhere here or here. Sawanobori 101. It gives you a good idea of the history, the culture, why Sawanobori is not the same as canyoning. If you're asking me what's the difference, watch that video, you'll find out. And in the same video, I'm going to bring you to Asahi River in Nara, and you get a glimpse of how beautiful nature is in Japan. So that's it, folks. Take care, climb safe, swim safe. I hope you get a chance to experience Sawanobori and be a salmon, or maybe more like an ayu, since we're in Japan. I wish you a wonderful summer, and I'll see you in the next one.